And we will finish with the big story of today / yesterday, the everyone in a pile lawsuit continues. Everyone in a pile grows. Trump and 17 states have joined Texas' effort to convince the Supreme Court to void the vote in Pennsylvania. So let me scroll in so we can actually read this. President Donald Trump has moved to intervene. That's always good. 17 Republican-leaning states threw their support behind Texas's long shot bid to upset the election. These states are now, because it's listed somewhere in here, these states are now Alabama, Arkansas, Florida, Indiana, Kansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska, North Dakota, Oklahoma, South Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee, Utah, and West Virginia. And my understanding is about an hour ago, Arizona also decided to enter the pile. So now it's 18, I believe, that are now entered the pile. So it's 18 states versus 4 states. Civil War Part 2, Electric Boogaloo. In separate briefs, Trump and the states, led by the Attorney General of Missouri, suggested that the results, so this is in the amicus brief that they're referring to at this point, suggested the results from Pennsylvania, Georgia, Wisconsin, and Michigan cannot be trusted and accused judges and election officials of capitalizing on the coronavirus pandemic to introduce what they described as drastic and fraud-inducing changes to the election law. With their filings, Trump and GOP officials in more than a third of the states have now endorsed an unprecedented and audacious effort to upset the election. These things don't happen, the president's attorney wrote in the filing, which cited as evidence an opinion poll that 75% of Republicans believe the election was stolen. And for what it's worth, I believe, although I could be mistaken, 30% of Democrats, I don't think believe it was stolen, but believe that they would have stolen if they could have. Mm-hmm. But maybe I'm misquoting the number there. But there's some percentage of Democrats who believe it was stolen or they would steal it to get Trump out of office. So, and of course, this has election law efforts on both sides of the partisan divide that would include me have panned the case and say there's little chance that they would agree on this. So we must end our stream with discussing that. Now, I saw your video earlier, and you had an even more critical opinion than I did. You thought it was pretty much crap. Am I understanding what you said correctly?
Yeah, I think you've paraphrased it pretty nicely. Well, the thing is that I feel like this is always going to be like an AA meeting or something. Like you got to talk people off the ledge. Listen, I understand that there's going to be voting irregularities, right? But this lawsuit, number one, let's just take the big elephant out of the room, right? The person who's bringing the lawsuit initially from the Texas AG, he's under federal indictment, right? He's been under federal indictment for the past 4 years, and he's seeking a pardon, right?
Yeah. So this is all a pardon request, really. It's all really a pardon request.
Well, I'm not saying it's all really a pardon request, but you know that's also has to be put in the picture here. You know what I'm saying? That this guy isn't like some fairy tale, like he's just coming out to do his jolly good giant stuff.
He's in a lot of trouble. He got his entire executive team fired or quit because of various scandals. The assistant AG and like everyone else all fired or quit because of things that he's involved in. The Attorney General of Texas has some skeletons in his closet. And there's some real signs there that are all's not well necessarily in Lone Star State. At this point, I'd like to say that I'm available for Texas AG. I'm available, and I am not corrupt, and I also have background checks. So hey.
But hold on, he won re-election, even though we had this issue, he won re-election. But the thing is, but even without, and I did not mention that fact during my, and the reason why is because when you're doing a legal analysis, I wanted to keep my legal analysis based on what was on the page and not just outside stuff about this. What does his motives or his motives happen to do? If he has a good legal filing, I don't care what his motives were. But my issue with the legal filing is just a simple issue: is that as soon as you read through it, it reads like us in Texas. We read the laws of Georgia. The state officials, the courts, and the enforcement of Georgia are not following Georgia law. And then you go to Georgia and they say, no, we are following Georgia law. You know why? Because we interpret it. And this is So when you have that type of conflict between one state saying another state's not following its own laws, number one, what authority does Texas have to even say something like that, right? They don't have any authority to go into Georgia and just like, because you don't want to start having that thing where New York starts going into Texas and saying, well, Texas isn't following its own law. Like that doesn't happen.
So that's where I ultimately break down. And that's where ultimately I think it's going. It's basically standing. There's no harm to Texas.
No.
So whatever might have happened in the internal machinations of any of these states, they're internal in those states. So like even if they're corrupt and whatever, that's a problem, but it has no harm on Texas because every state gets to choose its electoral votes. Texas had its process. None of these states disrupted Texas's process. None of them interfered with Texas's process. Texas is going to send its electoral votes the same as they would.
Well,
now, did you hear about their creative theory about why they have standing? Because I thought it doesn't work, but it's nice.
Well, they have
creative.
They cite the 14th Amendment, equal protection.
Yeah,
they cite equal protection, and they're doing it in this totality. In other words, because it's for the election of president, and we get standing because if they choose the wrong president, then that's how our people. So it's that type of overarching. But
oh no, they have one better, which I like. It doesn't go anywhere, but it's a creative idea. So it's not the president that's the problem. It's the vice president that's the problem. Oh. Here's the issue. Because the vice president is the president of the Senate, and because the states are represented in the Senate, the states, by virtue of having the wrong president of the Senate, are harmed in so much as the president might be able to influence and or cast votes that would break things. So there is their standing. Because the vice president is the president of the Senate, and the wrong vice president is put in charge, it will hurt their direct interests as sovereigns in the Senate. I like it. It doesn't work, but it's a nice idea. It's creative. Hey, you got to give them bonus points. You got to give them bonus points for trying, Nate. That is something you wouldn't think about on a con law exam. Give them credit, man.
Yeah, well,
that's bonus hour. That's bonus time hour.
You would give credit for it because you would say, "My God, somebody's thought of something to get you to court." But
someone thought of an issue I hadn't thought of. I mean, I gotta give them credit. It's like I can say, "Hey, that's an issue I didn't think about."
Two things that I was to say. Number one, I don't know why Viva and Barnes have jumped 2 feet first into this thing. Right after I did my video, I actually watched your video. And I was like, "Oh, you think you thinking the same way I'm thinking?" Viva and Barnes have jumped, full fledged. This has got something, but it's just simple. The simplest principles of law here are being violated, right? And that's why I think the Supreme Court just said, "Okay, we want your briefs in 2 days," because their briefs should be almost nothing. Like, hey, obviously,
now I wouldn't want to write a brief in 2 days. I'd want to die. And the Supreme Court, would you want to write a brief to the Supreme Court in 2 days?
But I'm expecting.
Even if you had the best case of all time, would you want to write a brief in 2 days?
I'm saying
I want to die.
The decision is already made, though. I'm thinking whatever brief they can write whatever they want, right? The decision is going to be made that there's not going to be any standing, right?
Yeah.
The Supreme Court is not going to interpret Georgia law and say that Georgia officials are not interpreting Georgia law correctly. They don't have the authority to do that. And after Monday, since it's going to be Monday,
that would be the day. Yes, it's the first Monday after the third Wednesday. Because I don't know, we have to have weird rules.
Yeah. So anyway, Monday when they vote, it's over anyway, right? It's over anyway. The relief that they
is it? Or is it, Nate? Because Giuliani says the only date that really matters is January 20th. I suppose we can fudge that one too if we really want to, right?
But now he's officially, and to be honest with you, you can make an argument now that he's officially, since they've certified the elections from because the electors actually have to physically vote, but like the Georgia elections and all that stuff. But I do understand why some people have hope that this is going to be successful. But it's just I think people just need to step back and think. The Supreme Court does not have the authority, and I want to make it very clear, does not have the authority to interpret state law. The final authority on state law is the state Supreme Court, just like the final authority on the federal law is the federal Supreme Court. And people don't, and I think because people don't understand that, they think that Texas can tell Georgia you're not following you're like, think about this.
Yeah, it's a total non-starter. I mean, I'm with you 100%. I've said this many times. You can't go to the Supreme Court and say Texas can't go to the Supreme Court and say Georgia isn't following a state law. Among many other problems, the Supreme Court doesn't have jurisdiction.
Yes, they just don't. They just and the one other thing is that they're honestly saying the Pennsylvania Supreme Court misinterpreted Pennsylvania law. What are you talking about?
That's not possible.
It's yes, because it just isn't. And so when you see things like that, and you know that this is a last dash for cash, and I understand it, but we'll see if the madness stops. And people keep saying that there's all this election fraud evidence.
Now, I think I may quibble with you one part, and I don't know if you were speaking to this in your video or not, but I might disagree with you that I thought that the brief was extremely well written.
Oh yeah,
I thought it was very, very well done.
Agreed.
I don't think it goes anywhere, but I thought, compared to stuff Powell and Giuliani's been filing, I thought it was brilliant.
Oh yeah.
If you submitted this as a law school answer, A+, 10 out of 10.
Hold on. I'm not saying the brief, the writing was bad.
No, the brief was brilliant.
It was a brilliant piece of writing. No doubt about it. But I'm saying the arguments were bad. The brief was
the argument doesn't go anywhere.
Yes. The argument. Oh yeah. So what would you think? I'd quibble with what you were saying?
I don't know. I was just that's why I prefaced it by saying I don't know if you would disagree with me or not.
Oh no.
I thought it was really well written.
It was.
You were so focused on the merits. I didn't necessarily know where you stood on the quality issue.
It's like the Katie Joy.
That
was bullshit. That was 100%.
We can criticize the writing and the merits separately. We can say this is really well written, this is poorly written, and I've seen poorly written stuff that will work. Not in this context. So just because it's poorly written doesn't mean it won't work. But so there are three issues the way I see it with the Supreme Court. There is a jurisdiction issue. For me, I'm not sure this really is a state versus state issue because Texas doesn't have standing, in my view. So they've tried to dress it up as state versus state to get original jurisdiction in the Supreme Court. But I think there's a fairly decent chance the Supreme Court says this is not really a state versus state issue. I mean, that's what you put on the label, but it's not really that because there's been no harm to you. There's no issue for you. So this is not really a state versus state issue. So this is not really jurisdiction. This is not really original jurisdiction case. So I think there's a decent chance they bounce it on jurisdiction on that way. Then there's the issue of standing separately to that. Yeah. And then on top of that, it's political question. So I think the most likely result, so they've asked for a brief. They've asked for the Pennsylvania to respond by 3:00 tomorrow. And I panic and want to die because even though I think I have it in the bag, asking me to write a Supreme Court brief in 48 hours is the stuff that is nightmare fuel, no matter how right I think I am. Trying to do that. So they have to submit it by 3:30 tomorrow. I'm looking for a per curiam. I'm looking for about 8 pages. I'm looking for it to come out late tomorrow or end of business Friday and will be done by end of business Friday. So I'm looking for an 8-page per curiam and maybe with a dissent from Kavanaugh or
you think there's going to be a dissent from this? Well, what dissent could they make?
I don't know. They might be bitching. They might bitch about something. I don't know. They might bitch about something. I could see a Kavanaugh, Thomas bitching about whatever dissent in this.
Well, don't forget. I think you got a lot of stuff that can come up into this. Latches. I think you like they can pull anything out the bag with this one, right? It's
I don't think the Supreme Court pulls the latches. I don't see them doing that.
But I'm saying it's possible because you filed it like 3 days before the vote. You know what I'm saying? And we're going into a weekend, right? So and what's the redressability? Do we stop the? It's just
redressability is a huge problem. Yeah, redressability is a huge problem. $10 from Isaac Castillo. I heard Barnes' recap argument, compact between the states. So yeah, Barnes is trying to argue this kind of quasi-contract theory. The states are in a contractual agreement, and because one state is doing really bad stuff, it violates the contract. No, how the Constitution rules that the states agreed are to be followed. There's 2 videos Barnes does a walkthrough. Haven't seen his videos. I was actually on his channel trying to find the videos because someone mentioned it. I was on his channel right now. And the latest video I see on Robert Barnes' channel is from a month ago. So I don't know where these videos are that people are referring to. So if someone can give me a link on my Discord or in the comments below where these videos are from Barnes, then maybe I'll do a video about them tomorrow because I haven't seen them and they're not on his channel. So I don't know where they are to respond to. And I'll be happy to respond them in detail and see if he has arguments that convince me because, I'm always open-minded. I like, at least hope I am. Hopefully I'm open-minded. If they make a good argument, they make a good argument. Like I just said, just now, or like 10 minutes ago, or whatever it is at this point, I said, this argument dealing with the Senate president, being the vice president. I mean, okay, that's a creative argument. Hadn't thought about it. So I give credit where it's due, even if I don't think it works. So I'll be happy to do the thing. I can't find these videos, so I'll be happy to step through it. But I don't think this idea of like this quasi-contract argument of we have bound ourselves in our mutual fortune, and because of the rampant corruption in Georgia in their internal matters, they have violated the interstate. I don't even know how that works.
Yeah,
I'm curious, like, because even if you buy it, like, how does Georgia, assuming like the worst possible case, being a fraud-induced quagmire of corruption, how does that break the contract? Because again, you have the power to choose the electors to
whichever
the states.
way you want.
So, like, even if Georgia's involved in some sort of messianic quagmire, how does that like break the contract as far as Texas is concerned? Now, maybe there's federal law violations, so you can get to it from a lawsuit somewhere else. So you could file against Georgia in federal court and work your way through up. But how does Texas have standing, even if someone else does or the federal government does? It doesn't make sense to me. So, like, even accepting the worst possible premise, I don't quite see how Texas has a harm. Texas has the right to choose its electors. It did that. What harm has befallen to it?
Well,
I don't know.
This is all hinging on one premise, and that's the fact that the voters, that they didn't follow their own voting procedures or their procedures with voting, because mail-in voting and so forth and so forth. And one thing I think the problem here is that, number one, because the states can choose whatever way they want to allocate their electors, they can say, hey, we're gonna go with the citizens, or we're not gonna go with the citizens, right? Because remember, Trump was out there going from state to state saying we want the legislature just scrap the popular vote and just name their own electors, because it's possible to do that. So let's say the worst case scenario, Georgia is totally corrupt and people voted for President Trump and they said we're gonna vote for Joe Biden. There's nothing that doesn't allow them to do that, because don't forget, Article 2, Section 1, Clause 2 allows the state legislature to choose the electors however way they choose. It's them in the manner they choose. So even if everything Texas is saying is true, they still won't. It still wouldn't matter, because legally, Georgia can do whatever it wants, right? Under that clause. So that's the issue with Texas. Texas may be right. Those Georgia voters are disenfranchised, but unfortunately, Texas can't legally do anything about it, because Georgia picks its electors whichever way it wants to. And don't forget, you don't have a right to vote in a presidential election. It's the state legislature gives you that right by passing a law and says we want to do it by the popular vote, but you don't have the right to vote in the presidential election. They can tomorrow say,
and they can yank it back, it right back.
And that's the way George Washington was actually voted in, through this manner, right? They weren't voted in by popular vote. They had, it was the state legislatures that picked electors, and those electors then, so this is I think it's an ignorance of actually how the federal law works when it does come to picking electors and that type of stuff. So we'll see.
Yeah, I'll respond to two things. Someone did bring up where I can find it. It's on locals.com. I have to sign up for an account for that, and I don't have an account there right now. So I will sign up for an account, and I'll take a look at it, and I might do a video about it tomorrow. But thank you for the people who brought it to my attention. As to this super chat from $5 from Presidential Election Signature Chat, the 4 states changed their law by the executive judicial branch. U.S. Constitution says state legislatures shall set the manner of choosing. Okay, so this is what I think, and I'm pretty sure what Nate thinks too. So the legislature does get to select the manner of choosing. That's correct, and they do so by passing laws. And then the question is, what do those laws mean? What is the interpretation of those laws? And those questions have to be decided by somebody. So, like, the legislature can't possibly act alone except by just directly picking the electors. They can do that. But if they're going to do it by voting, they can't really act alone practically. They need the executive to do the elections, to put together the ballot machines, to count the votes, and so forth. And they need the judicial branch to interpret any election laws that they do. So at least for me, and I'm pretty sure for Nate, it's like, yes, the Constitution says the state legislature shall set the manner of choosing. Then the question is, what did they choose? And that's an issue of state law. And that's where the judicial branch comes in. Maybe less so the executive, but definitely where the judicial branch comes in. So, for example, turning to Act 77 of Pennsylvania, if the question is, did the legislature, can they choose that? And that's an issue of state law or anything else. So, the legislature gets to choose, but what did they choose? And that's not an issue of federal law, it's an issue of state law. So that's where I come down on that.
Yeah, I think, I'm agreeing with you 100%. I think people don't understand. The legislature passed a law, and the judges, the judicial branch tells you what the law means. So if they say the law means, and especially with Act 77, they said, well, Act 77 is constitutional and it comports with the state constitution. That's the final say. That there's really nowhere else to go other than that. The U.S. Supreme Court can't overturn state court's ruling on state law. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah, someone pointed out that Home Max says Viva did point out in his video that the rules were changed by favorable consent agreements. I really enjoyed Viva's video on the matter. I recommend it. He did a really good job on it, where he laid out why he thought it was a good brief, why they laid out really good arguments, and that they set up basically fictitious lawsuits to be able to do things by consent agreements, and that there was illegitimacy. So he made a lot of very good arguments, so I don't begrudge him his analysis. I just think there's a problem there. So that's, what we all ultimately think, so.
Yeah. And the good thing is that I've gone on a limb, and I said this is definitely going to be kicked out. You've said it's going to get kicked out. We'll know by Friday. We're going to know before Monday. We're going to know before.
Yeah.
The court is moving at lightning speed.
Yeah.
How fast they can move when they need to get their ass.
I think odds are you're looking for a late night drop Thursday night or end of business Friday. So it's going to be 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10 p.m. Thursday, or it's going to be 5 p.m. on Friday.
Well, let me read the tea leaves. If you're talking about it,
sure, go ahead.
If the Supreme Court is telling you to get a briefing within 48 hours, they know number one is going to be that scale. They understand it's not going. You're gonna. So they're looking for something that you just put something in. Just respond to this. It's not going to be like a default. Just respond to this. And I think a response is just going to be simple. You just keep it to the merits. They have no standing. This is the reason why they have no standing. They're interpreting state law. This.
I'd still shit my pants.
I would be scared, but I would still understand. I think the defense to this lawsuit is simple, right? You got simple things that you can knock down. We've gone over them right now. They watched this video and they put it together. It's a 1, 2, 3 thing. I'm assuming that most of these state AGs have offices and people who, get your ass up. We're paying you $100,000 a year to write these briefs, So at one time,
you're paying me to write these. You're paying me to write these briefs in a 3-month time frame, not a 48-hour time span. That's a very different exercise. So I guarantee you right now, in a room somewhere, there's a bunch of people who haven't showered in a while, who are drinking tea and or bourbon at the same time, possibly, and are writing like mad right now. I am pretty damn sure. So I doubt they're watching this stream very, very much. But if they are, for some reason, cheers to you, sirs. I have the vaguest idea of what is before you, and I'm having an anxiety attack just thinking about it. So good luck.